Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video, doing JMA Friday today. As always on a Friday, so this is going to take us through towards the end of June, a month ahead, with the Japanese and CFS B2 models. We've got a lot of uncertainty coming up still for the bank holiday weekend. It looks like we're going to have a fair amount of dry weather really for Saturday and Sunday. Don't think it'll be too bad. I mean, there's question marks about bank holiday money, but overall, actually things are probably trending a bit better for the bank holiday weekend. This heavy thundery rain that's threatening the country for bank holiday money may just about hold off. So I might actually do another update later on for the bank holiday weekend, just a final one, really. I'm not all that pleased with how things were looking last night compared to how they're looking this morning. But it is a very, very complicated one, this bank holiday, causing all sorts of problems for the models. So maybe there'll be a final bank holiday update on the bank holiday updates page this evening. Before I get on with JMA Friday, though, just to say about the ads, there's links to articles on all the pages. Have a browse through the widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. Thanks so much for doing that. This video adds to most of the pages which own our content. When you watch them, they close back up again. It helps to pay for gaswebbies.com. So we'll start off with the 500 millibar height anomalies from the JMA model. As always, these are broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us through the week that we're currently starting, the 27th of June, 27th of May through to the 3rd of June. Yellow, red, orange extrapolates high pressure, blue extrapolates to low pressure. So what we've got for the coming week is a ridge here up to the north and the northeast of the country, a trough of low pressure in the Atlantic and generally going to the south. The jet stream's doing something a bit like that. It's rather a bizarre jet stream, but it's going a bit like that. And essentially it's a blocked scenario, which means we have a fair amount of dry weather to the north and the east, always rain threatening the south with these troughs of low pressure to the south, and the winds and the flow generally coming in from an easterly type direction. That should be fairly warm and probably quite dry, especially for the north and the east of the country. We go through to week 2, which is the 3rd through to the 10th of June. Very little change really. The ridge above average heights is still there, centred to the north. It's a little bit more to the northwest as opposed to the northeast. A bit of a trough is starting to get going across Scandinavia down into Eastern Europe, but essentially we're still mostly dry. This could be a little bit cooler because the flow goes something a bit like that, and we're probably starting to bring around sort of northeasterly winds around that ridge, going a little bit like that. So I would think still generally very pleasant conditions and mostly dry, especially in the north, but perhaps a little bit cooler going through there into the second week of the period. And then week 3 and week 4, which is the 10th through 24th of June, so just knocking on the door of the Glastonbury Festival, and also covering the referendum, of course, the European Union referendum. So this looks like the Westerlies are returning a little bit. It's a very complicated pattern here. We've got low pressure setting up around Greenland, low pressure setting up around Scandinavia. Otherwise, hard to work out what's going on. But I think generally the jet stream is probably coming south. It appears we're losing the ridging, the above average height. So I think as we go through to the second half of June, although it's not a great deal to go on, we're probably seeing the jet stream coming south. We're probably seeing some sort of a return of the westerlies a little bit. So maybe turning more unsettled there as we go through into the second half of June. I don't want to go too over the top with it and be giving you the idea that we're looking at a rain fest or anything like that, because there's just not enough to go at really. But as we're losing the yellow colours, the above average heights, which is high pressure, I think we're probably turning a little bit more unsettled and reverting back to westerly winds as opposed to the easterlies that are dominating at the moment with that particular scenario. That's the Northern Hemisphere view, looking down from the pole. Let's have a look at the tropic and mid-latitude view. So the British Isles on this chart is just here in the very far top right hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it. The North Pole is up here. That's where the blocking is at the moment. You can't really make it out, but of course we've already seen what's going on over the pole with the charts we were just looking at. So this is the first weekly period again. This is the 27th through to the 3rd of June. Temperature anomalies then for the coming week coming out significantly above average. It'll be quite a warm week in those yellow colours there. Haven't seen that a great deal this spring. It's been generally quite a coolish sort of spring, I think. But overall, yes, the yellow colours are there for the coming week. So it looks generally quite warm with that high pressure up to the north and the northeast. And precipitation is looking quite good as well because that's coming out drier than average. So a warmer, drier week coming up for the coming week. And then we go through into week 2, which is the 3rd through to the 10th of June. Remember, with this one, we've still got the ridging up to the north of the country. It's a little bit more centred to the northwest. So I thought we're probably starting to bring down a slightly cooler airstream from the northeast, perhaps, as opposed to the warm east to southeasterlies that we've got through the coming week. You see that on the temperature anomaly as well. It is still a bit above average, but generally not as above average as it will be in the coming week, you see what I mean? So closer to normal, although still going slightly above average there from the 3rd through to the 10th of June. And precipitation, that's looking generally drier than average as well. So still quite warm and dry and pleasant, really, as we go through that week 2 period. And then week 3 and week 4. This is the rather odd-looking chart. We know that we're losing the yellow colours. We're losing sort of the high pressure, the above average heights. We've got low pressure up here, and again, you can't see it, but low pressure is over here around Scandinavia. We are just bare. I thought perhaps hints of the westerlies return. Let's see if that's backed up. In terms of the temperature signal, it's still coming out a little bit milder than average. So quite a warmish period coming up here, you have to say, for the coming week, with all 4 weekly periods generally coming out with above average temperatures. However, we do see indications that precipitation is increasing. So again, whilst you're not talking about a very wet period, it's not a deluge, I don't think, we are seeing the precipitation almost going a little bit above average. That's particularly so, interestingly, you probably can't make it out, but interestingly for England and Wales, it's a little bit wetter there than Scotland and Northern Ireland. So that's just indicative that as we go through in the second half of June, probably starting to see the westerlies returning, probably starting to bring some areas of low pressure and some bands of rain in off the Atlantic. As I say, this is quite a significant period at the latter stages of June. We've got Glasgow, we've got Wimbledon, there'll be a referendum going on. All these things can be impacted by the weather, and it looks like it's turning a little bit more unsettled there as we go through into the final stage of June. That's the JMA. Let's have a look at the CFS V2, see whether that's backing up all these ideas. So we'll start off with 500 millibar heights. Again, these are broken down into weekly periods once more. So going from the 27th of May through the 2nd of June. The first weekly period shows, again, a very extensive blocking up to the north and the northeast of the country. Low pressure down to the south and penned in around Greenland. So the flow, again, is going, or is doing something a bit like that. It's really quite a odd-looking flow. And it means that the jet stream and the wind direction is coming in from an easterly type direction for us, which should be quite warm. Remember, easterlies in the winter are going to be very cold, but in summer, easterlies are quite warm because the continental landmass warms up very, very quickly at this time of year with the strength of the sun. So easterlies will always be fairly warm direction in summer. Week 2, very much in agreement with the JMA in that the position of this ridge is changing a little bit. So instead of being centred over Scandinavia, as you see in week 1, it's generally centred towards Iceland and Greenland. Still a lot of dry weather, but it does mean that we probably bring down cooler air from more of a northeasterly direction there. Not cold, but certainly a little bit cooler, I would think, there, as going from the 3rd through to the 9th of June, with still a lot of dry weather. And then week 3, this is from the 10th through to the 16th, and it sees a very obvious change, quite a dramatic change. We've got high pressure centred around Greenland, above average heights, and then low pressure, trough, becomes centred over the UK and Scandinavia as well. So this looks much cooler, I would think, and generally very unsettled as well. You could get some showers or longer spells of rain coming in with that as we're going through into the middle part of June. So maybe backing up the idea that we're just looking at from the JMA, but as we go through into week 3 and week 4, possibly getting some sort of a deterioration to more unsettled conditions. And then the CFS Week 4 anomaly looks like this. It's going from the 17th through 23rd of June. And this one, again, still signs of quite a bit of northern blocking here around Greenland and Iceland, but also coming back towards Scandinavia again. I mean, it's hard to see what's going on for us, but I would think the trough here is probably undercutting this blocking a little bit. So I would think, whilst that's probably not as unsettled as week 3, it probably does still bring showers along with spells of rain through the country and fairly cool weather as well. Let's have a look at the temperature anomaly. So the temperature anomaly from surface V2 for the coming week looks significantly warmer than average from the 27th of May through the 2nd of June. Week 2, look at this. This is going from the 3rd through to the 9th of June. Looks very warm. That could be a burst of summer, maybe even a little bit of a mini heat wave there. And it's a little bit surprising because this is when the ridge is changing position and becoming more centred towards Greenland. So I would have expected this to be a bit cooler actually. But anyway, you can only go what the model is showing a very warm week there from the 3rd through to the 9th of June. Week 3 still looks above average with the temperatures, but less so, returning more closer to the average, although not cold by any means. And then week 4, the 17th through 23rd, again, quite interesting that it's hinting at being a little bit above average with the temperatures. I would have thought with the trough being centred close to the country into this second half of June period, it would be cooler than this. So I'm not sure the model's quite got this right. I think that could be a little bit cooler than the model is suggesting as we go through into the second half of June. Precipitation, so the coming week looks generally near normal with precipitation, although it does hint at being a little bit wetter than average. Probably can't make it out, but a little bit wetter than average across eastern parts of the country. That may be down to Bank Holiday Monday, where we could get a deluge, or maybe won't get a deluge. Still very much on a knife edge with that. If it's not on Monday, we may get quite a bit of rain on Tuesday. We've just got to see how that works out. Week 2, generally looking significantly drier than average from the 3rd through to the 9th of June. Week 3, this is when the trough comes in over the country of Western Europe. That goes wetter than average, so definitely a deterioration there as we go through into the middle part of June. And then week 4 doesn't really show much at all. I think it's probably losing the signal a little bit, but I would have thought that would be another fairly unsettled week again. So it looks like I've got a fairly good agreement here between the JMA and the CFS V2. It appears that the first bit of June up to around the middle of the second week of the month likely to have a fair amount of dry weather and generally quite warm as well. But certainly hints between these two models that get through into the middle and then probably second half of June, we get a deterioration. It turns more unsettled, maybe not a deluge, but it turns more unsettled with showers along with spells of rain. And as a result, temperatures probably start to drop a little bit as well. So that's how it's looking. Quite interesting because June is a very rapidly warming month, of course. On average, the first half will be significantly cooler compared to the second half when it on average becomes much warmer. So it's interesting that this year it appears we're doing it the other way around, with the first half of June signalled to be generally quite warm, and then the second half maybe a bit cooler. But it's all very experimental anyway, so we'll see how it plays out. And of course we'll do it all again next week. Right, that's all for now. There may be a seventh and final update for the Bank Holiday weekend this evening, because I'm not very happy with how Bank Holiday Monday is playing out. Still loads of uncertainty about it, so probably one last update for that this evening. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.